Today is August 17th, 2018, and we're speaking with Stephine Poston from Sandia Pueblo. We are joined by our videographer, Dr. Beverly Singer, and our project intern, Jonna Payton. The interview is being conducted by Rose Diaz, IPCC Project Coordinator. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome. I'd like to share some of your personal and work history as background as we move into the interview. Ms. Poston and her siblings were raised by a single mother at Sandia Pueblo. Born in 1967, her family was one of the first ones to live in the original HUD housing project on the Pueblo. Her grandfather was a strong force in her life as a father figure, and she credits him with her willingness to, quote, watch and learn, show up, and get your hands dirty, unquote. She was a competitive Native women's softball pitcher, attended modeling school, and was academically inclined. She attended local schools, graduating from Bernalillo High, but her sophomore and junior years were disrupted by a family move to Memphis and a completely different environment from Pueblo life. At first she resisted, but again, competitive sports played a significant role in those two crucial years. The family returned permanently to New Mexico at that time. Currently, she makes her home in Sandia Pueblo, where she is raising two sons. She majored in business at the University of New Mexico and received a Master of Arts in Organizational Management from the University of Phoenix. Since 1990, she worked as a public affairs officer for the U.S. Forest Service in New Mexico and Arizona, as a tribal planner, a tribal health and safety director, and a public relations analyst for the Pueblo of Sandia. As a young entrepreneur, she created and is president and chief executive officer for Poston and Associates, executing a number of culturally relevant communications and marketing campaigns for tribal communities, for tribal customers. She is active in community affairs and in 2017 became the founder of the Native Women's Business Summit. That year, she was named Native Woman Business Owner of the Year, and in 2018 was inducted into the Anderson School of Management Hall of Fame at the University of New Mexico. Just a few samples of her awards and honors. Most recently, she co-authored a recently released publication entitled Indigenous Women Entrepreneurs in New Mexico, Surpassing Barriers and Stereotypes. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I hope I got most of that right.
Yes, that's great.
So I'd like to focus our interview today on your experience as a leader in the field of business, which is often viewed, especially the communications and media relations fields are usually viewed as predominantly white male-dominated fields. So I'd like to start by asking, what in your experience brought you to the field of business and organizational management?
Attending the University of New Mexico, I think there was a group of us that graduated from Bernalillo High School and probably first to go to college from our families. And so we kind of stuck together. So there wasn't a lot of talk back then about what's your career, what do you feel strongly about. So at some point we had to just kind of choose, and business sounded like a good one. So I chose business and ended up at the Anderson School of Management. I applied for intern jobs and as an intern for human resources with the Air Force, and then I moved over to the U.S. Forest Service as public relations. And I really, really liked that because I was being able to craft and develop a story that the public could consume and be able to tell different sides to different issues. So I really liked that.
What obstacles or barriers did you have to overcome in these early experiences?
You get the smile and the nod, like you're going to college, that's good, but deep down you're not so sure that they're sure of you. But they keep cheering for you and clapping for you and hoping for it because there wasn't many of us graduated from college at that point. And so just mustering up that courage every day to keep showing up at school, getting the rides from my friend in Bernalillo who would come by and pick me up in the morning from the Pueblo, and so we'd get to the school. So just finding rides was number one. Number two, I didn't have very good study habits. Number three, I struggled with my own confidence. And number four, I had no choice. I had to work. So it's just a combination of all of that were challenging. But then also, you see them now as it makes you who you are.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I've been contemplating this a lot. So everybody, nobody gets a pass on pain. I mean, the pain is sort of, you can be bruised but never broken. So it's like, how do you provide opportunities to other Native women to look at business? And I always think, God, it shouldn't have been this hard for me. But everything built on a success, a failure, 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. Like all of that gives you that Pueblo creed, that business creed, that savvy to get through the next piece, and gives you that stamina. So really looking at those challenges and just viewing them and telling a different story for yourself. Like, this is not going to last forever. There's an other side of this, and just, it's going to be amazing on the other side. It really will.
So that hopefulness is very important.
Right.
Tell us about the beginning of your company, Poston and Associates.
So I have been working for my tribe for 11 years, and I loved it. I learned so much working for my own tribe. But at the time, all Indian AIPC, All Indian Pueblo Council, they used to have like a business development type arm or economic. And so some of my colleagues from college, UNM, worked there. And so when I passed through the offices, my friend would say, "Hey, Poston, when are you going to start your own business?" And I was just like, my eyes would roll back because I'm just like, I have no idea where to start. So I started to dabble in it a little bit, got my LLC. I started doing job coaching with Division of Voc Rehab. And then I just said, it's time. Let's do this. And so I told my mom, I'm going to start my own business. And she looked at me like, okay, sounds good. But I think in the back of her, I mean, this is a new concept. I mean, she totally loves me. She supports me. But this crazy, odd kid of mine, like, why does she take crazy risks like that? She has 2 kids. But so I did it anyway. And 2 of my first clients were actually a couple. One was doing solar energy and another one was doing business consulting, and they hired me, and I never looked back. And I was never hungry, and neither were my kids.
Yay!
Yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about the challenges and struggles, but as you're going into the business and you're actually doing business for clients, what obstacles and barriers did you have to overcome?
Yeah, I've been so fortunate, but like what happens is it's not the initial pieces. It has been when you're trying to go to a new level, and the new pieces that have to be involved with the legalities, the making sure IRS is paid up, making sure you have enough to pay for the people that work for you. I mean, that's a huge responsibility, and to be able to continue to keep the contracts rolling. And I think another challenge as I've been in business is there are so many capable Native-owned businesses. It's hard for me to imagine when our tribes hire non-Natives for the work. And I don't know if it's intentional, but I just think there's so much room for improvement. Because that's recirculating the dollar back into our own communities, and that's so powerful. So that's a challenge.
So what are some of the most gratifying projects that your company has worked on?
I always tell the story. So it was during the first Obama election, and Santa Clara called up and said, "Can you help us with our voter empowerment?" And so initially at the primary election that year, they had about little over 30% voter turnout. And so they said, can you we really want to be active and engaged. So can you help us register new voters and help us get them to the polls? And so they went from that 30% turnout to nearly 70% at the general election. And they really gained some influence politically in their area. And that just was amazing. And then the other piece is that leadership actually came in and was so thankful. I was like overwhelmed. I was, oh, it's awesome.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
You're the founder of the Native Women's Business Summit that was recently held in 2017. How did that come about, and what do you feel were the most important outcomes?
Yeah, so this thought had been rattling in my head for about since 2012, where I wanted to, Michelle Obama had the State of Women, where just a collection and collaboration of women throughout the country to speak about ideas, what's happening, what's going well, what's not going well. And so I wanted to have the State of Pueblo Women. So it's a forum, a summit sort of setting. But I was starting to talk to funders, and we thought there's a space for it. But man, what a heavy lift to organize and orchestrate something like that. So what happened was in the meantime, over the years, I have been a part of Native Entrepreneurs in Residence, which is housed out of New Mexico Community Capital, where they team you with a mentor to elevate your skill set. Where are you in your business? And so what I discovered is there was all these other amazing Native women in business that I had not even touched base with, that all kind of had the same idea, like, how do we have this summit? So we came together in August of 2017, and we said, let's do a summit. And so then we started throwing out ideas. Maybe we should do this, or maybe they think that. And I said, you know what? Let's ask them what they want to learn about. And so we had this Elevate session in October, and we got a lot of feedback, kind of like focus groups, about what they would like to see as Native business women in a full-blown summit. And so that informed our April 2018 summit. And it was just an overwhelming success. People told us, you won't get 200 Native women in the room. But thank goodness, we proved them wrong.
How many did you get?
Over 200. And that people were trying to figure out how to get more. And we felt bad because everybody couldn't get in, but we just, that was what we had planned for.
Yeah. What do you feel were the largest outcomes or biggest successes that you saw coming out of that summit?
I think it was really just holding the space for each other. Being a Native business owner and woman is lonely. And so that there was actually other people who had similar challenges, who had ideas, who were everything from doing accounting to doing big contracts with the federal government, to a whole just range of people that, how come we're not doing business amongst each other? What does it look like? We need a resource guide. And the panels were pretty powerful too. And just the women on the panels just being frank and honest about this business owning is not for the weak. But that it can be done. It can be done, and that you can build a business in something that you're passionate about.
Were you finding the same sort of lack of communication within their own tribes about working with them?
Yeah, that was an issue we heard about, like when they are competing or responding to an RFP in their tribe. Oftentimes they're overlooked.
Why do you think that is?
I think our tribes still are struggling with the whole point of their own, maybe confidence in their own. Like, they see us as young little pain in the butts from when we were kids, versus that we're business owners, we're totally capable and we can do this. And the whole point is we're loyal and committed to the tribal communities we serve. Like, you can't buy loyalty from somebody else.
well, you can pay for loyalty, but you can't actually get it from the heart. What did you see was important about this conference that you were not expecting? To Native women especially.
It's a very good question. I didn't think that we were going to get the overwhelming response that we did. I was nervous too. About 3 weeks out, we had 30 people signed up. So we met and we were like, we are going to get it together and we're going to blast it on social media. We're going to publicize these amazing speakers that we have asked to be a part of us. And in that 3 weeks, sold out.
Were you able to get corporate funding or?
A little bit of everything. Corporate and
private
foundations. Yes.
Okay. You recently co-authored a book on Indigenous women entrepreneurs. How did that come about?
So as an Anderson School of Management, having gone to that school, so they have these little networks where they invite you to a panel to talk to the incoming Native students into the Anderson School of Management. So there's a little bit of connect there. And so Jay Francis from Laguna Pueblo had, and one of the professors there at Anderson School of Management had asked us, can you, and it started from the panels and just that sort of connectedness about, we teach business here at our school, Anderson, but there's nothing that reflects Native people and what that looks like.
So how does it feel to go from being a business person to being an author?
I haven't wrapped my head around that. I feel really good now that you said it like that. It's really cool, like, that you can do that. Like, it can be used as a tool in UNM, and I don't know, maybe my grandkids will like be reading it, and it's going to help someone, it's going to spark an idea, it's going to be relatable that they have those same challenges. So it feels pretty good the way you said it.
What were you thinking when you were writing it?
First of all, I went through this whole thing of procrastination. I was just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And every time the other co-author saw me, where's your chapter at? Where's your chapter at? I was like, okay, just do it. Just do it. And so I was thinking, it's really fun to tell my story about where I've been, where I'm going, and the challenges and my own core values in my business.
So is that basically the core of your chapter in the book?
Right, about where I started and building my business on the core values and how you weave those cultural teachings into your business and the pieces that come to that, the integrity, the respect, are all a part of my business, and those are the core values that developed early being raised in my community.
That's great. How do you juggle, in reading several of the articles that we pulled, how do you juggle your business with your other board and memberships and volunteerism? And just a few of the things that you're involved in is the Southwest Association for Indian Arts, Santa Fe Community Foundation, Native American Advisory Endowment Fund, and Brave Girls Program at Santa Fe Indian School. How do you manage to juggle and also have a family?
I used to say yes to everything because that's, in our communities, it's important to be of service. But now, it is important to give back. So now if I know 2 boards are a heavy lift, that is all I will do. And then just wait on other things. Some of the other things don't meet as often, so you can manage and juggle, but just understanding if you're going to do some volunteering, what is going to be your responsibility, how much time, and then being honest, because I've said no as well. It doesn't feel good at the moment, but afterwards, like, when that wears down, you're like, yes, that was a good choice.
Yeah, that was the right choice.
Yeah.
We were sort of interested in the Brave Girls program and what that is.
So the Brave Girls is out of the Santa Fe Indian School Leadership Institute, and it's run by Daylene Carice, who is amazing. She's on her way to get a PhD. And what she does is just have these young Pueblo girls gather on a regular basis and expose them to different speakers, different opportunities, but they meet and they have this sort of sisterhood to a place to exchange dialogue, maybe what are their challenges, but what are what's some amazing stuff happening in their lives. So she had asked me to host them because they wanted to learn how to golf. And so I said, I went up to Sandia and I talked to the pro up there, and he set them up. They drove them down. They sat there and got some golf instruction, and then afterwards they came to the grill, and I was able to treat them to a meal. And then I had like my niece Ashley, who is a language preservationist, she came and spoke to them. Deb Holland, who is now running for Congress, came and spoke to them. And then Charlotte Little came and spoke to them from the point of voter empowerment. And so that was cool, and they enjoyed it. And that makes me happy because it's really important that when you've been blessed to have opportunities, that it's my responsibility to make sure that you help others.
I thought it was interesting as you were talking that there's this implied or maybe hidden agenda about networking. And is that something that's that you think through in working with groups like Brave Girls, connecting with other people and making sure that they have these connections, or that they at least have met someone? Is that important? An important
Absolutely.
Part of that
is to show them somebody that looks like them, somebody who comes from their communities. It's possible. Mm-hmm. And we only limit our own self through our thoughts. And how do you lift them up and make those connections for them?
Is this a yearly program, or?
She has it during the school year, so she does, I think they meet weekly, and so periodically she'll reach out and say, hey Steph, can you host us? Or Steph, can you join us? We're going bowling. I'm just like, yes, let's go.
Oh, great. We have a little known fact about you when you were in Memphis.
Yes.
You won the Miss Millington beauty pageant. What was that experience like, and what in the long term did you gain from that?
Well, I didn't, so to be clear, I didn't win. I was like placed top 10. So thank you for that elevation there. But for me, early on when my parents invested in the modeling school to calm my clumsy, that was helpful. And then just as you're in high school and you're trying to figure out fashion or trying to boost your confidence or to make a difference, I was scared mostly. I was really scared. And even in the interviews, I didn't feel like I was too worldly like the other people competing. And if it wasn't the time to tell my native story, because when people found out that I was native, they would ask like ridiculous questions. I always showed up as, I'm Stephanie, I'm Native American from Sandia, Pueblo, no doubt, all the time. But they always had questions. Do you live in teepees? Do you wash your clothes in the river? I'm like, aren't you all supposed to be sophisticated? Really? You still ask those questions? So it was a confidence booster for sure, but it was scary.
And how did the other students around you view this, knowing that you're, native and?
Oh, they were happy for her. Yeah, by that time I found my way, I guess. I found some comfort.
Yeah.
Because initially when we arrived, I thought I was going to die from loneliness.
Yeah. And it was a very different setting.
Oh.
Can you talk about that setting
absolutely.
that you arrived in?
So when we get there, we get out of the car, I couldn't breathe because the humidity is so heavy. And nobody looked like me. It's very, I've experienced, it was very, either the African American community and the white community. There was no in between, so nobody looked like me, I didn't think. And it was, I missed home. I really had not ventured much off the reservation, and so I really was super lonely. Like when people say they could die from loneliness, that was me. And then I had to say, snap out of it.
And that's a hard part of your life when you're a sophomore and junior. You're just starting to fit in. That was a difficult place to be. You moved there because of?
My stepdad had been a part of the strike with the air traffic controllers, and so it was really difficult at that point in his life to re-enter the job force. So he just re-entered the Navy. And so then that was what prompted us to move.
So that's where you were stationed. How long were you there? Just those 2 years?
2 school years. So in the summers I would come home.
saving yourself. What was the town like when you arrived?
It was very small, townish, a little bit different than Bernalillo. People had a different way of talking, and apparently I came with a New Mexican accent as well. So it really took a long time for me to concentrate on the cadence of the voice and how the pronunciation. So half the time I couldn't understand them, and half the time they couldn't understand me. So it was a little bit of a challenge. And so I had to really become aware of how I articulated and how I spoke. But yeah, I thought I landed on a different planet.
And again, another confidence builder as you're...
Oh, I didn't see it like that at all. I was so mad. I couldn't believe it. I was having a darn good time at Bernalillo High School. I was like, really, Mom, why do we got to do this? But the family said, that is your parents. And they still care for you, and you go with your parents.
Who do you regard as important mentors in your life, personally and professionally?
My mom, my sister, and my grandparents, and then my mother's siblings. I mean, my grandparents had 14 children, so I have a lot of aunties and uncles. So her being a single parent, in their own ways, nobody said they all looked after and supported. So everybody had something to teach me. You know, I've been encouraged, I've been scolded, I've been all of that, but I never forget that it comes from love.
And professionally?
Professionally, I would say I look up to Gina Yule, who is from Cochiti, and I look up to Monica Hohola, who is from Isleta. And everybody who had the confidence to hire me. I'm so grateful.
Good. Can you tell me a little bit about why these people are important to you?
Well, you just see them operating at different levels. So Gina Yule owns where she reproduces like exhibits and banners, and so for trade shows, right? And so her clients are not only native. I mean, she just can. She's very popular business. She's like a go-to here in the area and nationally. And the way she handles her client with happiness, great customer service, and is just thankful. And she's doing it across all genres. It's amazing. And just seeing Monica and her tenacity and her savvy in business and being able to handle $1 million contracts with the federal government is like, wow. and what it took and the discipline to get there is amazing. And for my clients, what I learned from them blows my mind. And then I'm just like, I am lucky to be of service to you. It's because I bring my skill set, but it has to be tailored to what's going on in their community. And what I learn and what I can share with others as I move to build capacity in other projects, those lessons that I take forward help Indian country in general.
How would you advise young people, especially young women, about the need for mentors and how to find them?
Mm-hmm. So one thing growing up, if I saw somebody doing something cool, I was just that kid. I'd be like, how did you do that? Where'd you learn about that? Or I'd ask. And I was never afraid of that. And so if you see somebody doing something that, wow, that would be cool, go ask them. Because don't ever fear that, because whoever you're asking, they're so pleased. In 90% of it, they're like happy to share their story that somebody's asking. And then really, as you are growing, to be able to surround yourself with people who root for your rise and who will be honest with you. So every program that's been out there, whether it be emerging leaders with the Small Business Administration, whether it be Native Entrepreneurs in Residence, whether it be the Americans for Indian Opportunity Ambassador Program, I saw those as opportunities to connect, to grow, to build those leadership skills.
Now, with some of these programs, you've traveled quite a bit. Can you talk about your travels?
So, the first time I've traveled, well, obviously I've been to like Juarez with the family a lot, but that's real close, so I don't know if that's really considered going too far. So as a kid, we didn't travel that much, just budgets weren't there to travel that much. So the first time I really went out of country was down to Caracas, Venezuela, down the Orinoco River to meet up with some of those indigenous communities. And that was just like they were with their government, how we were with our government, 40 years before. And just, wow, that is amazing. The other powerful trip we took was to New Zealand. And as a Pueblo woman, and not really being that exposed to you think Pueblos are the only Indians. I learned better. I'm better about it now. So when we got to New Zealand and how they greeted us, I'm just like, we are so much alike. And that was just shifting for me. Mm-hmm. And really strengthening the bond with my other AIO brothers and sisters, and that respect for where they also came from throughout Indian country.
How does Americans for Indian Opportunity, AIO, what was your experience with that? How did you find out about it? How did you get into it?
So when I went to go work for the tribe, we got this beautiful invitation from Americans for Indian Opportunity, LaDonna Harris. They're having a reception for these ambassadors in Santa Fe. And so I went, and to hear them speak about the project, because everybody has to introduce themselves, to hear them speak about these ambassadors from throughout the country, speaking about their initiatives in Indian country and that passion from the heart, and to hear LaDonna Harris speak and the work that she has done, it was like, I'm going to be a part of that program. I don't know how, I don't know when, but yeah. Yes.
And then you got in?
Like 3 years later. So I got in 1998, 20 years ago, and that was, again, life-changing. Just having that exposure to other Native Americans who were doing language preservation, who were protecting the environment, who were protecting sacred sites, who were doing legal work in their communities, all walks of life. But that commitment to their communities and the people they served was pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. How does all of that inform how you do business?
I'm a good networker. So if an issue comes before me for consulting, I have a whole network to call on. Somebody who knows something about a particular training somebody might be asking about, or how they approached a sacred site protection issue. So I see them, I mean, it's just this network of amazing Indian minds out there that you can call upon to help you through whatever business issue or challenge you may be facing.
What are, I know we've talked about some of your projects, but what are some of the startups that you have helped with? So
recently I have supported Laguna Pueblo. They did a census project, so it was on the scales of the national census that comes out, but they tailored it for their community, and they needed some marketing and communications ideas about how to reach out to the community, to ensure, to give them that reassurance that the information they were collecting was confidential, and about why they were collecting the data, so to build a stronger community that met the needs of the people. So that was just really cool to see that happen, and now they have gathered the data, and now they can go forward in an informed way working with their community.
And as a tribal planner, that made a lot of sense to you.
Right.
Yeah, to have that, yeah.
Right.
What about the, have you started any businesses with young women entrepreneurs? Have you had anything, advisory role or anything like that with some new businesses?
So part of Native Women's Business Summit was part of that. Some people were thinking about how to get in business. Some people were already in business, and some people were there that were ready to go to the next level. So in that sense, yes, but I haven't been intentional about what you're saying. That's a good point. Another thing to add to my list.
another job for you.
Thanks, Rose. Appreciate it.
Be happy to give any advice anytime. But your life story is very interesting because of these kinds of connections that you've had, not just locally but internationally. And do you find that people not envy, but that they're sort of struck by the kind of experiences that you've had? People in your community?
Yeah. But it's okay. Right? It's okay.
Well, I find...
And you. So my aunties love my stories, thank God. So when they come back, they're anxious to hear it. But you get the sense. Some people can only take doses at a time, and that's okay. Everybody's at a different spot. It's cool.
And how do you, we talked about tribal leadership in the beginning. How does someone like you begin to break down those barriers that they have to hiring local folks?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out how, what are the statistics? Every tribe is in a different space, and every tribe has different capacities. So I think it's a timing issue. It's letting them know we do have our businesses and that we're available. That's part of our own, it's on us, it's our marketing, right? And how we're out there. I mean, and you can't get tired of that. as a business owner. It's part of the gig.
Mhm. So how do you get around how do you get around some of those issues? Is it just tenacity? Is it old vendors are no longer doing something, and so you're invited in, or?
I think for me, the awards have helped,
Yeah.
right? And so that's some sort of, it lets
Kind
people
of
know
an
what I'm
entry.
doing. Yeah. And like social media, I think plays a role in, strategic planning. This is what I do. And so there's different venues, or most of my work, honestly, is word of mouth. It's not so much responding to that RFP, but Stephanie did this training, or Stephanie did our strategic plan.
So your name is getting
Right.
out there.
Right.
And that's probably part of the agenda, is to get your name out
Right.
there to do that. So my final question is, in a general sense, what advice would you give to young Pueblo people growing up today? From all of your growing up experiences, high school, business, college, what is it that you would like either to see in young people, or in the future, what are their challenges, and how do they need to kind of protect themselves or be ready for who they're going to be?
Really ground yourself in where you come from. Like, never, for me, our culture, our heritage is really important. It's what's made me who I am today, for sure. And elders are pretty wise, and some of them have advised me. I may have not liked the advice at the time, but reflecting back, I get it now.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because some of our other interviewees have also, in reflecting back on their lives, have said, this spending time with my elders, not just related to me, but in the community, was vital to my success. And so that's kind of an interesting theme that's been running through this, but how do kids nowadays do that? Because they're so tied to their technology, tied to, whatever it is that they're doing. How do you see that happening in a community?
So communities have tried to do this through some sort of like intergenerational space. You see a lot of grandparents visiting maybe childcare facilities on the Pueblo. But everybody's got an auntie or a grandma or an uncle or somebody. And when you start there, there's something magical that opens the path for more.
That's a nice way to say it. Is there anything we haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm just super excited. Oh my goodness. I'm so honored that you did this.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate your time, certainly, to join us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.